Welcome back to the Athlete's Porch. This conversation today with Blake Hammond is special because I recruited Blake during 2020 during COVID. Talk about that, we dive into it. And then he's just grown so much from year to year. And I coached him 3 years at Santa Clara. I've stayed in touch with him. This conversation that you're about to hear, and it is a conversation really just probably more so between two friends talking, if you want to label it between a player and a coach talking, but it's a casual conversation and we dive into his journey, about his ups and downs, what he's learned, his identity. It is so good. He's got such a great mindset to go through. So enjoy the conversation. Thanks for tuning to the Athlete's Porch. Subscribe right here. Follow along. We'll have more of these coming out next week. Big Blake,
What's up, JK?
how you doing?
I'm good. How are you? Thanks for having
Doing
me
good,
on.
man. Doing good. Good to see you.
Yeah, good to see you too.
Dude, what's happening? How's North Carolina? How's Tread? How's all that stuff?
It's been great. Yeah, I'll keep an eye on that. Make sure
Oh,
it
you're
turns off.
good. I got yeah.
Yeah, it's been great. It's just been good to be in a new environment, I would say. Just like brainstorming, talking with other people in the same boat as me. It's been huge. I know the community in Colorado for pitching and all that isn't super big right now. So
Hmm.
um,
Yeah, just surrounding yourself with kind of just like all day, right? Just not all day,
yeah,
but just like,
most of the day.
but if you're around it, then you're going to learn something. If you're not around it, then you're not going to learn anything.
Yeah, no, exactly. Yeah. It's just like being able to get into those conversations with other dudes and then like my coach down there and just like brainstorm and kind of like pick their brains and what's worked for them and
Yeah.
what could possibly work for me.
Yeah, I like it. I
There we
like it.
go.
Now, how do you get picked a specific um coach? Like, is it like, hey, oh, this guy, like you
Yeah,
met
it's like when
somebody?
you sign up with the with Tread, they kind of like talk to you, interview you, kind of see the person you are, and then from there they'll assign you one of their coaches who maybe like has some sort of common interest or thread with you, or kind of has guys who are in the same boat as you,
Yeah.
or see something in the way like you pitch or you move.
Hmm. For sure. I like it. I like it. Good, man. Well, good. This is a good excuse for me just to connect and see you as a former player, right?
Yeah.
And a good dude. Which is nice, but ideally this will go out as like a podcast. Probably like more so springtime and
Okay.
during the baseball season. But yeah, just want to be able to um, connect and then just chat about your process and leading up to where you are, just because of everybody wants what you have, right? Everybody
Right.
wants your position of being a draft pick, 15th rounder, but not everybody knows the work that goes into it. And for you, having recruited you to Santa Clara, I specifically remember how that process went down. And my side of it might be a little bit different than your side of it, so we'll mix and match there. But
Yeah.
just going back because you graduated in 21,
21. Yep.
21, right? So our recruiting process with you was COVID,
Hmm.
and so it was unique during that time of it to where we actually didn't get to see you live. And we
Right.
had to rely on a ton of video, right? And through that process, and it was late in the game, you were uncommitted. And one thing for sure that I saw from you, there's two things specifically that we saw from your video that we liked over the time, and we had asked for more video. Hey, show us this or go back. Is you had a good lower half, thumbs up. You had a good lower half, right? So like we're like, okay, well, he's got a body, right? He's got a frame that can fill out. And it's not like you're 6'5", right? I mean, you're probably
Right.
6'2" at the time, right?
Yep. 6'2".
And and um, and then we're like, okay, then he's got a pitch. And it wasn't the
Hmm.
fastball, it was the breaking ball. And looking at that, and I forget if it was the slider you called it back then or the curve, if it held true to be the curve ball, which is, your pitch in college and as you're going through. But like those are the two things that we went through, and then we started to get to know you a little bit through that process, and you came on, and then it was just like we struck gold, not because of what you were on the well, not because of what you were on the field, but because of the work ethic off the field, which was an added bonus. And then throw in the fact
Hmm.
that you ended up pitching, Coach Filter ended up really believing in you and knowing that you were going to be good. And I think you threw around like 30, 40 innings freshman year and didn't go as great as you wanted it, obviously, but you were able to just gain experience, right? And then from there was a big jump. But let's before we get to that big jump, let's talk about that process, the recruiting process from your side of it and how it kind of played out.
Yeah, no, I think it was super unique with the timing right around COVID. I think you kind of nailed it. Like it was definitely all video, so it was kind of a leap of faith by you guys taking a chance on me, and then also I would say a leap of faith me recruit like talking to other schools purely based off video. Like I didn't really have the chance to go on any official visits or meet that way or even talk in person during like that summer through travel ball or anything. So I think it was just like a leap of faith and kind of like putting a lot of trust in everything done over video and online. But yeah, it was a crazy time just having to send out video, and that was kind of all I had to know whether I had interest or anything.
hmm And what did you, going through the process is, and this is more angled so that the, listeners and other people can like understand. So
Right.
besides the video, but like as a recruit going through the process, talking to different schools and coaches, which you ended up deciding Santa Clara, like what gravitated you towards that school for you? Or what did you like to hear about a certain school that drawed you to them?
I think a main part of it was more just the communication and like the recruiting game. I know I kind of reached out to a lot of mid-major high academic schools coming out of high school. And I think what really like stood out from Santa Clara from a lot of other schools was maybe just like the amount of times I connected with you or the amount of video you asked for. It kind of just like refined the idea that like, oh, if they're going out of their way to ask for more info or for more video, then they're obviously pretty serious about it, or they want to go on to the next step. So I think that was like the biggest thing I looked for was kind of just like the feedback I got from the coaches.
Got it. Got it. Yeah. And it's mutual, right? Like you were
Right.
obviously you're playing the game of hey, I need to find a home, so I'm going to respond and I'm excited to talk to coaches. But from a recruiting point, it's like coaches are talking to 15, 20 kids just like you, right? And we're trying to determine who rises to the top through everything. And it's not just stuff. Obviously, that helps, but that just gets you in the door. And then it becomes personality fit, character traits, work ethic, projectability, academics, family support, like all of that good stuff. And, I think there's a lot of value in just like the player handling majority of the recruiting process, specifically majority of the communication. Otherwise, you see the mom and dad holding the hands or writing the emails or sending the text and the kid not being able to mature enough on his own. So when he does get to college, then he's not prepared for it. So talk about your freshman year in college to where it's like, what did you feel like when you walked into the locker room that first day, that first week? Did you ever settle in? Like, did you feel like you were yourself? And maybe this will help the next person that's coming up into your shoes, going in a new environment.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely felt fairly comfortable from the beginning. I would say I definitely a little overwhelmed when I first stepped in the door, especially just like kind of soaking it all in, realizing, oh yeah, you made it to like the D1 school you always wanted to go to, and now you're here. I think that was a big deal, is kind of like understanding where you finally were. And then from there, it was kind of connecting with all sorts of different people and realizing maybe what their path looked like compared to yours. And just kind of realizing what you have to do once you get in the door to start earning playing time or to start earning trust with players or with other coaches. And I think I was super blessed to be around some great teammates, and the coaching staff really helped right when I got in there. So I think that made it easier, but it was definitely a bit of a transition going from high school baseball in Colorado to, a really solid program out in California for D1.
hmm And if you were to go back in time today, this is always a beautiful question. Go back in time today, and you're going to be an incoming freshman, next week. What would you make sure that you're kind of telling yourself after, 4 years have gone by and you know what you know now?
Yeah, I think as a freshman, the biggest thing is just like asking questions and being curious. I think that was something that I tried to do well was soak up all the knowledge from people around me, but I think I could have done even better about maybe getting other point of views or other opinions from other people because I think it's really valuable the experience and the lessons some of the upperclassmen have learned. And the worst thing you can do as a freshman is come in there and think you got it all figured out. When I think I was really um, shocked of everything I hadn't known and had to learn in the first year. So I think picking brains of upperclassmen is like the best way you can really get in there and kind of understand what you have to do before you actually have to experience it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Let them show you what's worked and what hasn't, and then you have
Right.
to mold that into your own game. And so within the game, where's the balance of coming in as a new guy, right? And this is you. This will be you going into spring training in a week at the time of recording this. Is where's the balance of soaking the information up, but also believing in who you are as a player, whether you were an incoming freshman or whether you're now a draft pick in an organization competing against, grown men. Where's the balance for you, looking back on it, or even now, to where it's like, okay, I know who I am or who I want to be, but I'm still learning. I still want to be a sponge.
Yeah, no, I think it all starts with just like the confidence and conviction you have in who you already are as a player. And just because you're curious or trying to soak up all the information from someone else doesn't mean that you necessarily have to apply all of it. I think that's like the biggest thing is like having a filter and realizing maybe because someone told you something, it might be helpful for you, it might not be helpful for you, but it doesn't mean you have to apply it. I think if you have the confidence and conviction of who you already are, then you can kind of have a third person point of view and realize, oh, like that might work for you, but I think for me, I'm okay, and maybe I don't need to apply that, but maybe something else you said I want to try and I want to apply. So I think it's definitely having that balance of like realizing what you already do well and what you need to work on. And then maybe if something sticks out to you where it's like in an area where you're not that good right now, then you're like, okay, I need to try that. But I think it's realizing what your strengths and weaknesses are and realizing you don't have to apply everything, but you can still be a sponge.
Yeah, I that clicked for me when you said, kind of a third person viewpoint, because and for me when we take a third person viewpoint, or you take a bird's eye view, you step back from a situation, you evaluate it. It's like, okay, I'm this person. This is what my strengths are. Okay, wow, that person's doing this really well. I do want some more of that, of whatever he's doing, right? And when you get that information, you got to be able to act on it, but you have to be able to step back and say, okay, how can I see what he's doing. I see his sliders really good, but how am I going to implement that into my game? Right? And if you just go in there without a plan of how you're going to implement it, then it's like you're just doing it to doing it, and you don't know the full end goal. But if you step back and evaluate and say, okay, I'm going to start to work this slider, and I'm going to give it some time, and I'm going to slowly build it up into catch play, and then when I feel like it's ready, I'll build it up into the bullpen and go from that. Do you feel like that's somewhat in line to where it versus the other guy? I think
Yeah.
the opposite is like, oh, I'm going to try that slider, rip, 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 rip. And now it's like, oh, wait, I forgot the feel of my other slider. And now I don't have a slider.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think a lot of it also kind of what you talked about is understanding who your identity is as like a pitcher maybe in this scenario or just as like a player in general. Um, like for example, maybe when I came into college my freshman year, I was trying to figure out that the new best slider or sweeper or whatever. And then, 2 years later, I kind of realized from my profile and the way I throw, I'm more over the top and I supinate better. Like a curveball was always going to fit my profile better. So I think and like that specific example is kind of a lesson in understanding like who your identity is. If you're a hitter and maybe your game's speed, like why are you trying to hit the ball in the air? If you're a pitcher, and you're throwing from down here, you're not going to throw a great curveball or a great fastball with ride. So I think a lot of it is just playing into who you already are as your identity and understanding your identity. Because if you don't understand your identity, you don't really know where you're going to excel in the game. So if you're trying something that doesn't fit in with who you are, it's not going to click.
For sure. I love it. Love it. And so, like, okay, your freshman year ends, and then you go off to play summer ball in Alaska, I believe. Um,
Yep.
part one, tell people, because I coached in Alaska, and I think every human being, at least baseball player, maybe should go experience Alaska. So that'll be part one of what I want to hear your experiences was. And then part two is you came back in the fall and you threw a bullpen, and I'm watching your first bullpen. I'm saying, holy moly, this guy just took a big jump in a lot of areas. And so let's hear it.
Yeah, first of all, I loved going to Alaska. I was definitely a little hesitant at first when I heard the news, but once I got there and I got up there, I realized kind of like what a special experience it was. It was I mean, it's a beautiful area and just being outdoors in that landscape is awesome, but I think also just kind of being so isolated, it was such a great thing for me. It like really gave me the ability to just focus on baseball and being around some new people and learning some new perspectives. So definitely grateful for that experience in Alaska. I definitely would say that summer was kind of like the turning point for me where I was kind of, like you said, I just got over a freshman year where I was grateful to have a bunch of innings, but I was also very disappointed in how it went. So I was kind of like this is it. Like I'm gonna figure something out to change things around and bounce back next year. So I think that was like the turning point. I remember in Alaska, and then when I got home from Alaska, I kind of just was so passionate about trying to figure things out that I was looking at these pitching ninja interviews for hours, and then the next day I'd go out and I'd try a new grip or a new thought process. And it was just like that for like a few weeks on repeat. So, but eventually things started to click and I kind of realized like, oh, like the profile's coming along. I'm definitely developed, definitely a bigger or a better pitcher than I was, 5 months ago. And I think some of that was just starting from the beginning. I remember in Alaska, I, uh, I would like probably throw around 90% fastballs for the first few weeks. I was just trying to get my conviction back and intent. And I think that was kind of what really changed things for me was realizing what the difference is between getting up there and like throwing and then throwing with intent and with conviction and trust in your pitches. So I think that was the main thing. And then from there, working on, refining my curveball or maybe adding a changeup or whatever it is. I think taking a step back before I was able to take a few steps forward was like the biggest thing for me.
Right. No, I love that. I love that. And kind of going back to basics. That's what you kind of hear of right there.
Yep.
And just, if you think about like, hey, I'm gonna go to a college game, college summer ball, game, and I'm just gonna get on the mound and I'm gonna commit to each pitch. And I'm gonna throw the heater and see what happens. And probably I don't know the stats in Alaska, but like you then also realize like, okay, if I could just get by with a heater 80% of the time and maybe wrinkle in an off speed to keep them on their toes and disrupt timing, like, okay, and there's some confidence that comes. And now you're going to add a second pitch consistently. Then you're adding a third pitch in the mix. And it's like, I mean, you came back and you were walking around like you were 7 feet tall, 250 pounds, like, and that's what it looked like when you got on the mound. And part of your demeanor when people watch you pitch is understanding your tempo, right? And so like explain how your tempo is a part of your game, a part of your mentality, because that's something that's like, Blake Hammond, man, he's on the mound, he's going, and it's all of a sudden it's like, here it comes.
Yeah, no, I think that was just part of that summer, kind of realizing my identity even more. And then playing into that once I got back that fall and the following spring and just kind of kept going. I realized like once I'm pitching faster, there's less time for me to overthink things in my head. And if I'm pitching fast and with a tempo and aggressive with a good body language, then I'm going to have conviction in my pitches and I'm just going to get right after it. And that was the big thing. And then also some of it realizing, hey, if I put the pressure on the hitter and I come at you quick with tempo, you're not going to be able to think things over as well. You're not going to be able to gather your thoughts or maybe reset if you don't like a call or don't like a swing. If I put the pressure on you, then I feel like I'm the aggressor and I have the control. So I think realizing that was huge for me and kind of understanding my identity and my tempo, my body language, and what I wanted to look like on the mound or how I wanted to feel.
For sure. I love it. I love it. And so you're going into your first spring training, right? And I don't want to skip over, just the awesome career that you had, but 3 years at Santa Clara. First year, you you had the experience, had an ADRA. I got it pulled up right here. ADRA, good. And then you bounce back, and just so that everybody knows, a 2.53 ERA, 45, 46 innings, 28 walks, 65 strikeouts, right? So you were always punching dudes out. but now you took it to another level, almost one and a half an inning. And then the following year, you go 70 innings, 83 strikeouts, 15th round draft pick to the A's. And so here you are going into your first spring training. And let's do a little manifestation here because I know you're always thinking about it and you're confident in your ability. Is like just like your freshman year. Now I've been in your shoes, how first spring training, really excited, blah, blah, blah.
Hmm.
And in the end, you got to have that third person mentality that you're referring to. And it's like, okay, what does Blake Hammond want to not necessarily accomplish stats wise? That's actually not what I'm referring to, but like accomplish mentality wise, trust wise with himself. And then the reality of the business part of it that you're playing a kid's game is going there and being around grown men with families who are all competing for the same thing.
Yeah, no, I think what you said about the results actually is one of the biggest things is not going in with expectations of an ERA or strikeouts or numbers or anything, but really looking at it as like for what it is, like spring training and to force myself to be uncomfortable or work on new things and really use it as training and a way to prepare for the season and kind of, take that step back and take some distance and see like, hey, where am I doing good at right now and where do I really need to improve? And then I think a lot of it is like that business, yeah, and like and being able to separate like what you can't control and just kind of like diving into what you can do each and every day. Like, yeah, I'm competing with jobs against guys who might be, 5 to 10 years older than me, but it's part of it and it's not what I can control. And I think some of it's also valuable to kind of like look at and be like, hey, how can I pick this guy's brain? He's been in the minors for 5 years, like what does he know that I can learn and will help me out in the next, 2 to 3 years? Whereas maybe it would have taken me 2 to 3 years to like realize that if I didn't talk to him or if I didn't pick his brain,
Mhm.
So I think it's valuable to be around those people in, the business aspect of it and understand what they can teach you and what you can learn from it.
Yeah. Success leaves clues, but failure is
Yep.
also feedback, right? And if you could learn from other people, then you don't have to go through that experience. Yeah, I always like to think about like we know the stove's hot, right? But why do we touch it when it's hot, right? Because you just want to find
Right.
out. You just want to find out, right? So like using those players as experience and as feedback, but also like what you've done an unbelievable job with in this conversation proves it is like you're getting knowledge, but if you don't take action, then it's nothing. And
Right.
you take action on the knowledge, the information you receive, and that's why you've grown within it. And my advice to you is having gone through spring training, when the comparison is at an all-time high, right? You're like, oh, this guy's labeled double A and I'm better than him and my numbers are this. And you said it, you can't control that, but
Right.
like having the discipline to understand like I can't control the dude that's throwing 100 next to me that they ranked higher than me like, but what you can control is the mindset that you said is I'm using spring training as a quote unquote tune up. You don't want to be peaking in spring training, right? You want to have flashes, you want to build the consistency, but as you understand it is you want to be peaking in like July. You know what I mean? And maintaining. And it's about getting better every single outing because the goal isn't just to have a great spring training. That's a check mark, right? The goal isn't to go play in A ball or double A, right? The goal is to make it to the big leagues and stay in the big leagues. And if you think about the track to get there on a ladder, right? You got 1,000 foot ladder, and the top of it is 10 years in the big leagues. Well, then a step below it is get to the big leagues, right? And then there's 998 other steps that you have to take to get there. And every time you step foot on that field, that's one step if you allow it to, right? And if you
Hmm.
respond the right way. And so that's my advice is that just know that it is the long game over here of you getting better and sticking and making to the big leagues, as opposed to just saying, oh, I'm going to go out and just rip it every single time and not learn from it and not reflect on it. And so That's my advice having gone through it because I tried to impress every single day. And I worked hard, right? But I didn't have the clarity of like exactly my game and self-belief because I saw Gene Segura playing right, taking ground balls next to me, and I saw Mike Trout for a year and a half doing what he's doing. I saw all these top picks signing for millions of dollars. And then I was like, I'm just a little kid from Santa Clara that happy to be drafted in the seventh round and play some baseball. But I didn't have that self belief because I started to compare more. I started to dig into the business side of it and think about more expectations rather than just like getting lost in the process and understanding that the process is going to help me. But I started to look too much into the results. So long-winded, that's my advice going forward is just use every outing as a stepping stool to get better.
Yeah, I love it.
Um, what about what about like journaling, things you do? Is there any things you do, time management, where it's like this has kind of helped you over the time?
Yeah, I've kind of played around with a lot of it. I know like we used to do habit share at Santa Clara, Google Calendar, all of that. I would say like the two biggest things that have like made the biggest difference for me and what I really try to stay on top of is journaling and then kind of like writing down my program or my schedule. So for the journaling, I love to kind of write down. It depends. Sometimes it's after every outing, sometimes it's multiple times a week, sometimes it's every day. Um, just kind of like where I'm feeling or what I'm thinking at the time. So like if I have a great outing, kind of going over each pitch and then like what my mentality was, it's kind of like a my own version of like a well, better, how. And I think a lot of it is trying to imitate a feeling, you know. So if I went out there and my fastball was really good, or I was working on the cutter and it kind of like finally felt like it clicked that day, like what did it feel like, or what was my thought process with that? So I think like jotting all that down and staying with it is a great way. Kind of just have like a log of what you've been feeling, or like maybe a month from now when your cutter doesn't feel good, like you can go back and be like, oh, this is what it felt like when it was clicking. So just kind of having that, and then also just like for your own sake, being able to write things down and kind of clear your mind has been huge for me. And then as far as like the program, just like writing out everything, like I think one of the biggest things that helped me in college was once I finally got onto like a steady schedule of like, what my warm up looked like every single day before I was pitching, or maybe what my mobility team looked like the night before I was going to be hot, or whatever it may be. I think just like having a list of what I was going to do that day was huge for me, because then I felt like I was prepared, and I didn't have an excuse if it didn't go well, that I didn't prepare well enough, because I was very consistent in how I approached everything. So I think that was like a huge thing for me, is just be consistent with my preparation and have an idea of what I'm going to do every day. So it wasn't, oh, I'm going to, roll out of bed and roll into the facility. And once I feel good enough, I'll get going. It was like, I got to hit this checklist and then I'm ready to go.
Hmm. For sure. And that checklist is, you tell me, but like that's not just something you chat GPT'd and was like, hey, what it's a checklist before. That checklist is
Right.
a lot of trial and error over
Oh
years.
yeah, 100%. Yeah, it's a lot of trial and error. And it's also, like I do say that as in like I needed it for preparation, but it was also like you have to be detached from it at sometimes, especially as like a pitcher. Like I would do it every day when I showed up to the field, but if I 2 hours later it's game time and I have to get hot in two batters, like I have to get hot in two batters. So I think it's also realizing when you have to do it, I think was the biggest thing for me. Like if I get to the field early and I make sure it's all in, then I've done it all, and then whatever happens from there happens. But I think kind of learning like what works for you and what you need to get in, and then what you can kind of throw to the side and isn't as necessary, was huge for me.
And is that more of how your body feels or how your body responds, and then in line with how you performed? Is it all?
Um,
Is it a little bit?
Kind of a little bit of everything. Yeah. It was kind of like, exercises or like mental checkpoints before I got ready, so even if my body didn't feel great, he still goes through the same warm up. Or if my body did feel great, it's the same. Like it doesn't change regardless of how I feel. And then like mentally speaking, like what are my goals, or like what am I gonna, like what's the thought process going into today's outing, or whatever it may be. Like always hit those checkpoints before maybe I show up to the field, or you put the uniform on, just so from that point on, I feel like I've done everything I can for this game or for this outing or whatever it may be. And then whatever happens, happens.
For sure. Love it. Love it. And if you when you hear, like James Clear
Yep.
or Darren Hardy, anybody talking about habits, is habits are it's not something that has to be done every single day that you rely on. Like you said, if you didn't do it that day, then you're going to pitch like crap. No, but habits are something that you build equity on and that you store up, right? Over time, and you do it and you do it and you do it, and then all of a sudden, and routine, habit routines, kind of same topic here, is you do that arm care mobility 90 days and then you don't do it one day, it doesn't mean that you're not going to have your best stuff. It's just like, no, I've done it for 90 days. I have it here. It's just the one time that it's okay if I skip out. I got to go compete with what I got today. Would you
Right.
would you sense it like that, or how
Oh
would you
yeah,
lay out your
100%.
terms there?
Yeah, I mean, I even remember my sophomore fall. There was like a day where I was just swamped with work. I didn't get my mobility in, and then I didn't sleep at all that night. And then I showed up, and I remember we had like a scrimmage at Sacred Heart Prep, and it was probably my best outing of the fall. I was just kind of like clicking that day. Everything was coming out well. All my stuff was like the best it's been all fall, and it was kind of like the clicking point for me where I was like, oh, like I've been really good about my habits like all fall, and I've been on top of my mobility, my arm care, everything. And then I didn't do it. Like I just didn't even think about it the day before, just like preoccupied with other stuff. And I came out and I actually had like my best outing, and running off not a lot of sleep that night. And I was like, oh, just because it's in my checklist doesn't necessarily mean if I don't do it, I'm screwed. Because I still got up there and I was kind of like, let's do it. Let's go time. Get after it, and it all kind of like clicked that day. And it was a good point for me to realize like, hey, this is all stuff I should be doing. And it's kind of like that thought process of like the small amount of work that builds up. And I think just doing that is good for what it is, but you can't be reliant on it necessarily, especially as a pitcher when you're going to have those games where you have two batters to warm up and maybe you don't get that one plyo drill and that you need, and the reality is you don't really need it, just go out there and do your job and you'll probably be fine.
Yeah, yeah. And I used to joke, half joke when I was playing is, hey, show and go, it might happen, right?
Hmm.
I'm not going to go hit in the cage and go through my 20-minute routine. I'm not going to do my full throwing or this or that, right? Like I might not be able to do my full dynamic, whatever routine that person has is they might be show and go. Hey, we're playing in 20 minutes. You don't get to take infield alpha. You don't get to take BP. Like, are you going to be screwed because you rely on that and it's comfortable, or are you going to have that growth of like, I don't need that. I have enough preparation in there. I have enough confidence. Let's just go compete with what I got, right? And I think
Right.
that's a huge component because you want to play in the big leagues, right? I mean, pitchers are throwing back-to-back nights. They're throwing 3 out of 4 nights, like things that you maybe never done on a higher scale, and you just have to go out there and compete for your team. Of course, you got to be able to handle that, or they wouldn't ask you to do it. But I think that's just something to like think about because the habits are important, the routine and the recognition of it, but it's not reliant, right? And
Right.
not all the time at least. So yeah. Um, what about like nutrition recovery? What's your go-to meal if you meal prep or cook? And then what's your go-to recovery mode?
Um, the meals, it's a lot of ground beef, I would say. It's just something that's kind of worked for me and it sits well with me. Really just trying to get that protein in. I try to strive for that, maybe a little over a gram of protein per pound of body weight. I've been trying to put on lean mass the last few years, so a lot of ground beef and chicken, some sort of carb, rice, potatoes, mixing in vegetables. A lot of fruit's been big for me. Adding a lot of fruit every morning, and snacks, like a lot of snacks of like bananas at the facility or anything. I think that's been like the biggest thing for me is realizing that you should always be snacking, especially if you're, high schooler or just got into college. Like you can really never have too much. So if you're having an Uncrustable or a banana or whatever, it's going to be good for you. So I think like that was the biggest thing for me is also, back to like preparation. I think once I started bringing the snacks to the field or to the facility was kind of like the big point where I actually saw, the weight starting to go up on the scale, and I was like, oh, it's just more of it's a matter of whether I came to the facility prepared today rather than if I really ate enough.
Yeah.
Um, and then recovery, I think it kind of also just goes back to having your routine. For me, there's a few things that work, and I think a lot of it is based off like sleep and how you eat. If I make sure I get 8+ hours of sleep in every night, then that's one of those things like I know I'm doing everything I can to prepare. Or if I eat well, then my body's probably going to recover better. I've just found those things out. So those are kind of the priorities I place, and then staying true to like an arm care routine. Having certain days of the week where you need to get it done, and then if you get it done on another extra day or two, then it's just bonus work. But like making sure you hit that checklist of like, I'm going to do my arm care the day of my pen, the day after, maybe the day of my live, the day after, like kind of those things have really worked for me. Just making sure, those are the days you get it in. And I think what you schedule gets done, like we say. So I think that's been huge.
Awesome. Awesome. I love it. I love it. What was it like getting the phone call from the A's? We'll end with this phone call from the A's and realizing that they just select you in the 15th round.
Yeah, no, it was probably one of the worst and best days of my life, I would say. It was probably the most stressed I'd ever been. Just being a dream of mine for years, and kind of coming like seeing it come to fruition, I think was huge. But also like when you don't quite get that call and it's like right there, I think it's one of the most stressful feelings probably. But then once it did happen, it was just like relief, and all your coaches and buddies are texting you, calling you, and I think that was like what made it all worth it. And you realize, oh wow, like it's happened. And then from there, it's kind of like a quick rebound. Like the next day you wake up and you're kind of like, all right, let's get to it.
Mhm.
Can't sit in it and just celebrate forever. But it was a great feeling.
For sure. I love it. I love it, man. Well, that's good. I'm excited for your first spring training and for you to go into it. And I'll actually be out in Arizona in the middle of March for almost a week. And so I'll communicate with you. I don't know how you planned your guys' schedules are of games and pitching, but
Yeah.
I'll reach out, see if I can come catch some action or anything like that, man. But great to see
We
you. Great to connect. And yeah, man, just control what you can. I love that out of you.
yeah. Thanks, JK.
All
Appreciate
right,
it, man.
buddy.
Thanks for having me on.
You got it. We'll be in touch.
Yes, sir.
See ya.